Happy Canada Day, everybody. Happy 151. It's been 151 years since Canada came to being. And I'm going to say something. If it wasn't for our great men and women in uniform who goes overseas, defends our great nation, Canada would not be the great country that it is. And let's give a great warm welcome to the Native Indigenous people for keeping our country the great country that it is, because it's the Native Indigenous people who are the very backbone of our great country of Canada. But anyways, let's take a look at our men and women in uniform for protecting our great nation that we call Canada. But anyways, happy Canada, everybody, and happy 151.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm honored today on behalf of the Democratic Party and our leader from the New Democratic Party to stand in this House to pay tribute to Canada's honored veterans on behalf of our party and, in fact, for that matter, on behalf of many Canadians across the country. This year, Mr. Speaker, marks the commemorations of the 115th anniversary of the start of the Boer War, the 100th anniversary of World War I, and the 75th anniversary of World War II. And I can't help think some of the names of those individuals who have served, Mr. Speaker. Captain Paul Triquet, BC, in Italy. Mr. Herb Prepard of the Devil's Brigade out of Truro, Nova Scotia, who served so valiantly with the American Allies as well. Tommy Prince, an Aboriginal veteran who served not just World War II in the Devil Brigade, but also in Korea. Last night, the Minister and I were at a wonderful event for Helen Rapp, who now, unfortunately, is passed on. She was a young woman that lied about her age so that she could serve her country in World War II. And last night, the City of Ottawa, Mayor Jim Watson, honored her with a street name under her name. And I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, if I had the money, I'd buy a house on that street, because she really was an amazing dynamite of a woman, I'll tell you. But also other people, Mr. Speaker. Jack Ford of Newfoundland Labrador, the only one to survive, the only Allied person to survive the Nagasaki bombing in World War II in Japan, and lived to be 90 years old up in Newfoundland. And also people, Mr. Speaker, like Louise Richard, who served in the First Gulf War. People like Captain Nagola Goddard, the first woman to die for Canada in combat. And many, many other people, Mr. Speaker. Ed Carter Edwards of Ontario, who survived the Buchenwald concentration camps as an airman serving his country. Mr. Speaker, these are just some of the names of our historical treasures. People who were willing to give up their lives for the sanctity of Canada and for the sanctity of a free world. And Mr. Speaker, I cannot tell you how proud I am when I woke up this morning and realized something I hadn't realized before. My father once told me the reason why we immigrated to Canada, because they said, after being liberated from a prisoner of war camp, he said, if they have a military like that, you imagine what kind of country they come from. And Mr. Speaker, I stand in this House today as a representative of Nova Scotia, and the Minister of Veterans Affairs is from a country that was liberated by Canadians, and the official opposition critic is from a country that was liberated by Canadians and our allies. And that, Mr. Speaker, is what Canada is all about. Canada is a beacon of hope. Canada is a beacon of light. And I know right now, Mr. Speaker, our servicemen and women who are serving around the world, they're young people looking up and going, I wonder what kind of country they come from. And so, Mr. Speaker, it is truly an honor to be able to pay respect to the men and women who have given their lives, the over 117,000 Canadians who are buried in over 72 countries around the world who fought for peace, freedom, and democracy. And if anyone ever wanted to know whether their sacrifice is worth it, well, I know some conservatives may not think about it, but I'm here, and so it was well worth it for my family to come to Canada in that regard. And Mr. Speaker, every day I wake up and I see that Canadian flag, and when I'm in Ottawa, I see the national cenotaph. I think how honored I am to be in this great country and to pay respects to the great memory of Nathan Cirillo, a young man of 24 years old, of the Argyle Sutherlands from Hamilton. No, Mr. Speaker, he did not deserve to die. That man deserved to live a full and fruitful life, all the way into old age, and to look after his son. But, Mr. Speaker, because of an act of violence, which was uncalled for, this man, standing sentry at the tomb of the unknown soldier, gave his life for all of us. And I know, Mr. Speaker, that everybody in this House of Commons and all Canadians will never, ever forget that man's sacrifice. Or Patrice Vincent and his friend were in a parking lot, and some madman goes and kills him with his vehicle. 28 years of service in the military, Mr. Speaker. Well-decorated veteran and a soldier. To give up his life like that, Mr. Speaker, is just unconscionable. But we as Canada, we thank them for their services. We thank them for their sacrifices, as we do all their brethren, their sisterin, who've also gave up their lives as well. We also consider, Mr. Speaker, their families, the invisible force behind the force. Without the mothers and fathers, the sons and daughters, the aunts and uncles and the grandparents, Mr. Speaker, they wouldn't be able to do the job that Canada asked them to do. So I salute the men and women who serve our country. I salute every one of their families. I salute on behalf of a grateful nation that when the cadets who one day may become military people down the road, our future heroes. And Mr. Speaker, as they say in the Legion, at the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember that.